Hello human beings, PowerGamer here. Boy, do I feel like joining the Kirby's Adventure Club right now. It's an exclusive club only available to people who are currently playing Kirby's Adventure, though your membership expires if you stop playing at any given time, which is fine with me. I'm not looking to make this a lifetime commitment.
Kirby's Adventure, yet another true beginning being entry number 2. Like many other old games, the second entry is when most people say the series really found its footing, and it's not very surprising since this was the first Kirby game released on a home console. Like before, it was developed by HAL Laboratory and directed by Masahiro Sakurai. It was originally intended to be a port of Kirby's Dream Land, but Sakurai decided it should be a totally new game since NES players were generally more experienced than Game Boy players, at least according to him. Since the previous game was criticized for being a bit too simple, the developers wanted to expand on Kirby's moveset. As a result, he was given a plethora of new abilities that would increase both the game's challenge and replay value. The game was developed very late in the NES lifecycle, so the developers were highly experienced with what the console could do and pushed the system to its limits. And since this was the first time Kirby was in color, many of the developers were shocked to learn that he was supposed to be pink. I guess that explains the original box art. The game was released for the NES on March 23rd, 1993 in Japan, with North America and Europe getting it later that year. Despite the game being released long after players had moved on to more advanced consoles like the SNES and Genesis, it was able to sell over 1.75 million units, so while it didn't do as well as the first game, it was still a success. It would later be remade for the Game Boy Advance as Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and it was one of the 6 NES games enhanced for the 3DS as part of the 3D Classics lineup.
I had played this game before, and I had a lot of fun with it. Hell, this is the first Kirby game I actually bothered to finish, so I do know what I'm getting into, but that's enough talking. Let's return to the Dream Collection.
King Dedede has returned, and this time he has stolen the Star Rod, a magical wand that holds immense power. He's broken it into pieces and given the pieces to several of his minions to guard them. We don't know what he's doing with it, but Kirby sees this as a bad thing due to the trouble he caused last time, so, like before, he needs to get it back. About as standard of a story as previously. Like previously, the game looks amazing for the system. Because this is one of the last major NES games released, they took full advantage of the system's hardware, resulting in one of the best-looking NES games ever. The colors, the sprite work, the backgrounds, everything here looks absolutely phenomenal. Although, maybe they took too much advantage of the hardware, because while this game is very pretty, it has some of the worst slowdown and lag I have ever seen come from the NES. The game turns into a slideshow when there's too much stuff on screen. It's almost as bad as Mega Man 3. But thankfully, the music is vastly improved from before, since the NES isn't as limited as the Game Boy in the sound department. The game is actually structured pretty differently this time. It's still a side-scroller where Kirby can inhale and spit out enemies and float by pressing up on the D-pad, but now the game has some actual meat on its bones. Dreamland only had 5 levels, and one of them was just a boss rush. Here, the game has been split up into multiple areas, and all of them have 6 levels each. You select a level by entering these doors, and they end when you reach a door with a star above it. You have to play them in order, but you can revisit stages whenever you want. This is a massive improvement from before because this means the game isn't over in less than an hour. It's still short, but nowhere near as short as previously.
This game fixed the biggest problems with Kirby's Dream Land. Not only is it much longer, but they also made it a lot more interesting by giving Kirby a new power that will become a staple of his character forever. His copy ability.
Like before, your main method of defense is inhaling enemies, and you can either spit them out or eat them. But if you swallow certain enemies, you can then gain their power and use it to take out other enemies. This is the most iconic feature of the Kirby series, so you would think I forgot to mention it before, but no. Kirby's Dream Land did not have the copy ability. It wasn't introduced until this game, and that alone makes it vastly superior. I've said it before, but I love it when video games let you use the enemy's abilities. And the powers you get in this game not only make it much more interesting, but a lot of these are really fun to use. The only downside is taking a single hit makes you lose your ability, and to get it back, you have to inhale this star before it disappears. I get that they did this so this way you can experiment more, but losing it in one hit is kinda unfair. I think at least 2 would have been better. As for the actual abilities, I don't think I can cover them all, but the ones I was able to get were Fire, which lets you spit a stream of fire out of your mouth. Cutter lets you throw these small blades. Beam is this laser that goes in a wave. Sword gives you a sword which you can attack with and do the spin while jumping. Spark surrounds you in this field of electricity. Wheel turns you into a tire, letting you blast off at high speed. Laser lets you shoot lasers straight ahead of you. Needle releases a bunch of needles for a second. Ice is like fire, only it freezes enemies in ice blocks. Freeze is basically a fusion of spark and ice. Tornado makes you spin around, float, and you are completely invincible while doing it. It's awesome. Parasol you can use to attack, and it slows your descent, which can help you squeeze through stuff. Hammer is the same thing as sword. High jump is self-explanatory. It's not that good. Ball turns you into a rubber ball, letting you bounce around. I don't like it. Stone lets you turn into a rock to crush things. Fireball lets you charge forward a bit. Crash and Mike are both screen nukes, only Crash gives you 1 blast while Mike gives you 3. Sleep is a trap, it literally prevents you from moving, and easily the best one of all, UFO. It transforms you into a UFO, letting you fly around, and gives you 3 shots depending on how long you hold the button. Tapping it does beam, holding it does laser, and charging it does a super inhale blast. It is amazing, but it wears off when you beat a level as opposed to the other ones which you can take with you.
The copy abilities are a fantastic addition to the gameplay, and a big part of the reason I didn't think Kirby's Dream Land was worth playing anymore is because it didn't have these. They make the game so much better.
Kirby does have a few more new skills though. By double tapping the D-pad, you can run faster. If you inhale 2 things at once, you can shoot a more powerful star blast. If you hold down and press the attack button, you can do this dash attack. And while you're swimming, you can't inhale or use a copy ability, but you can spit water to damage enemies. The power-ups from the last game have been removed, and the only one added is this lollipop, which makes you invincible. Every time you beat a level, you're taken to this mini-game where you have to hit the jump button on this platform to launch yourself up. There's 7 floors, and the higher you go, the more bonus points you get. If you time it just right and reach the top floor, you're rewarded with an extra life and the full dance sequence. If you don't make it, you get an abridged version. The level select actually has some extra areas you can go to. There's museums where you can grab an emergency copy ability, combat arenas where you can fight an enemy to earn extra lives and maximum tomatoes, and some bonus games where you can also get extra lives. There's a crane game where you have to pick up Kirby plushies, egg catcher where you need to eat as many eggs as possible while avoiding bombs, and a quick draw where you have an old-fashioned western showdown. You need to hit the button as fast as possible when this icon appears, and the timing gets really strict. And I love how Kirby's weapon gets bigger with each round. Like before, you have 6 hit points and die when you lose all of them or fall in a pit. Dying sends you back to the start of the room you're in, and if you get a game over, you're sent back to the level select, meaning you have to start the level all over again. Thankfully, the levels aren't that long or hard, so game overs aren't that big a deal.
Because there's a lot more levels in this game, many of them are pretty short.
There's 7 areas total, and once again they have an adorable intro cutscene. Vegetable Valley, Ice Cream Island, Butter Building, Grape Garden, Yogurt Yard, Orange Ocean, and Rainbow Resort. Weirdly though, the areas don't really have a specific theme. The area a level is in doesn't really matter in terms of design. You'll have levels in the same area that look totally different, and ones in different areas that look exactly the same. The only thing that really separates the areas is the boss fight they have at the end. And they all have warp stars you can find to take you to different areas you've already been to. Another big addition this game brings is mini-bosses. Almost every level has one of them, sometimes 2, but sadly there aren't that many, so they are reused constantly. It's not as bad as something like Boom Boom from Mario 3, but they still get pretty old. They each have a plethora of attacks, and some of them let you inhale things and spit them out, so you can always hurt them even if you don't have a copy ability, but having one makes them way easier. After killing one, they explode, but you can actually inhale them to get their ability as well. The mini-bosses include these 2 big guys that throw bombs, a gorilla with a hammer, a fire lion that jumps back and forth, a giant beetle that charges and makes little bugs, this big music guy that fires sound waves and notes, a big wheel that shoots little wheels, a giant ice enemy that freezes you, and a turtle that rolls around and is by far the most annoying. There's also some moments where you have to fight an army of knights that wield swords, cutters, and maces. These ones are easy since you can just inhale them and eat them or spit them out until they stop spawning. The only difficult ones are the ones with altered terrain.
Now we can get into the major boss fights at the end of each area.
Vegetable Valley has Wispy Woods returning from the first game, and with the copy abilities, he's even more pathetic. Ice Cream Island has Paint Roller, an artist that makes his paintings come to life, providing you with ammo. Butter Building has Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, a sun and moon duo that take turns jumping around. Grape Island has Krakow returning from the first game, only you have to first use the high jump to travel up these clouds. After that, the fight's the same as last time. Yogurt Yard has Heavy Mole, who digs through dirt and shoots small robots at you, and Orange Ocean has Meta Knight, a master swordsman and Kirby's longtime rival. This one is interesting because Meta Knight fights with honor, so he supplies Kirby with a sword that you can't lose. It's basically a sword fight, just avoid his attacks and keep slashing him. It's pretty cool. And finally, Rainbow Resort, where we get some of the coolest levels in the game. Some really cool backgrounds, there's a mini-boss rush, and even a throwback to Kirby's Adventure. At the end, we once again face King Dedede. The fight is pretty much the same as last time. He uses a hammer, inhales, jumps, trips, and inflates himself to fly off the ground. The copy abilities do way less damage than inhaling stars. Once you beat him and recover all the Star Rod pieces, Kirby heads to the Fountain of Dreams to return it, but Dedede begs him not to. Kirby ignores his warnings and puts it back. And then this happens. Turns out this evil monster known as Nightmare attempted to steal the Star Rod to turn Dreamland into a world of terror, and Dedede was trying to stop him this whole time.
Oops.
DDD launches Kirby and the rod, and now we have to destroy Nightmare. Kirby is equipped with the Star Rod, which lets him fire Star Blasts, and the game becomes a shooter because, well, it happened last time. Avoid the shots and fire back. Once he goes down, Nightmare takes his true form, and we have a second phase. He teleports, swoops down at you, fires Dark Stars, and does this tornado attack. He's only weak when he opens his cloak, so you need to wait for the perfect moment to blast him. It's honestly a really cool final boss, and easily the hardest part of the game. After enough hits, Nightmare is destroyed, and Kirby escapes on a warp star. Kirby thanks DDD for helping him, and peace is restored to Dreamland.
Game conquered. Kirby's Adventure is a vast improvement over Kirby's Dream Land. It's still really easy, but there's a lot of charm to it. If you're looking to get into the Kirby series, I think this is a great place to start. Either that or the remake, which is probably better, but the original version is available on more platforms. I just wish Kirby was here right now to help me fend off the nightmares I've been having lately. I still see it when I close my eyes.